Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Northwest Georgia Cryptid. I'm Rick Weaver, your host for tonight. Blake was supposed to have joined me tonight, but for some reason he's not been able to make it on. I am joined tonight by Mr. Jack Cary. Uh, Jack has investigated these creatures throughout the Midwest. I'm going to let Jack come on, tell his story, tell what got him involved in the field of cryptozoology and in the field of chasing Bigfoot. So, Jack, would you go ahead, buddy?
Oh yeah, well, as far as my entry story into cryptozoology, that's pretty easy. When I grew up in southeastern Oklahoma, very near LaFleur County, which even today boasts more Bigfoot sightings than all of the counties combined in the four surrounding states, and those are some heavily wooded states. So this county was, a major hotspot. And at the age of, growing up, you heard all about it all the time because this was in Oklahoma and people were having all these experiences. And at the age of 6, I was able to actually watch a documentary that aired way back then. You remember they had the rabbit ears?
Oh, yeah,
You
most
talk-
definitely.
Explain that to the young crowd.
Oh, yeah.
They just have no conception. But, um, you know, I begged my parents to let me out of yard chores that day because the subject fascinated me to my core as a 6-year-old. And I watched this documentary, and I swear to God that I never looked back. That was the day I decided that I was going to figure out the solution to this mystery. And I've been at it ever since. Now it's been, God, almost 27 years actually in the field doing forensic investigations. And man, what's gone on over the last 2 decades has been mind boggling, really, to me.
Wow. What type of evidence have y'all been able to retrieve as far as footprints, hair analysis, whatever?
Oh, sure. Well, as far as footprints go, so many of them that
Right.
after a while you just give up plaster casting them. There's no reason to anymore, and there's a very good reason for that. So
Hmm.
there's a forensic scientist um, named Detective Jimmy Chilcutt, and he's in Conroe, Texas. The interesting thing about this gentleman is that he's considered to be the world's foremost expert on fingerprinting. And this guy went around to every single continent where there were primates and he fingerprinted every species. And the idea was that he was trying to unlock the mystery as to what makes them so unique. But in the process, it made him also the world's leading expert on primate, fingerprinting and the foot ridges, the epidermal ridges on the feet. So what's interesting is that he took it upon himself to randomly have 200 different sets sent to him. He ran them through his microscope, which is extremely powerful, and he could pick up microscopic epidermal ridges on the real cast. And not only that, but he could show areas where the bottom of the foot had been wounded and had healed over in a scar tissue, which also cannot be faked on a microscopic level. And so, with that alone, the skeptics are left with a highly improbable scenario, and the only other scenario being that since at least 1967, you've had a crack team of forensic experts traveling around to the most remote parts of North America, planning forensically perfect footprints for no known payoff or reason, or you have a real species. And there's no way of getting around that.
That's exactly, that's what I tell people, all the time that they ask me about it, and the most common question that I get asked is, "Where's the bones?" And I'm sure you've gotten that a lot too.
Where are the
know,
bones?
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Well, that's actually not hard to explain at all. I mean, you can ask 9 out of 10 lifelong professional hunters who did it for their job their whole life. Ask how many of them have ever come across a bear carcass. And I guarantee you, 9 out of 10 of them is going to go zero. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of bears out there. And there's a very good reason for that. And that's because these bodies are simply consumed by the wilderness. Every insect, every predator, even porcupines eat the bones for the calcium. Now, on top of that, all of the top investigators really have come to a conclusion when you talk to them behind closed doors, coming from a lot of sources. These creatures are intelligent enough and human like enough that they are doing something with their dead. They don't just leave them behind.
That has always been
What's that?
that's always been my opinion, that they actually bury their dead.
Yeah,
I said that's always been my opinion, that they actually bury their dead.
sure.
Uh,
And we there's been I've had another researcher on a show I was on tell the same story that me and JC Johnson had heard a long time ago and had never told anyone. And he said that a Native American elder had witnessed a burial of one of them, and they had dug a large, huge hole, lowered the thing down in there. The interesting thing was that he said that they placed some kind of objects down into the grave. He was way too far away. He was up on a ridge, overlooking them. They didn't even know he was seeing him. But he said they placed something in there. Then they covered it up, and then they put this gigantic boulder on top of it that would take, like a crane to move. And you're never going to get heavy equipment out into those kinds of areas. So I think you're looking at a very tribal, very human-like. Me, especially, and a lot of other people think that these are a type of human hybrid, and they have a human-like intelligence.
okay, another thing, I get a lot of this as far as people telling me, "Oh, these animals are just dumb apes out running around in the woods." Well, I had a guy on the show here a while back that was telling me that he'd actually encountered these things in a national park, or not a national park, but a state park up in Tennessee. And
Mm,
he said that he had been going up there and camping for about 5 weeks straight in a row. And he said these things at along about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, they he would have his tent would be showered with just small pebbles. They would throw
uh-huh.
pebbles against his tent. Well, he said that about the fourth, fifth week he was up there, that before he went up that Friday, he had decided he was going to Walmart, and he bought a bucket of tennis balls and took up there with him. Okay, now he said that when he pulled into the parking area, he had to walk about a mile. He said from where you parked at up to where he was camped. He said when he pulled in the parking area that evening, there was about 15 other vehicles in the parking area. He said he got his stuff together, got the tennis balls, walked up to where he normally camped at, set up camp. He said about 10:30, 11 o'clock, sure enough, they started throwing pebbles against his uh, tent. And he said that he crawled out of the tent and he started throwing these tennis balls up into the woods. And he said you could actually hear these creatures. And he said it was loud bipedal footsteps. He said, but you could hear them chasing these tennis balls around.
Wow.
Okay, the kicker to this is now, and this is the reason I say these creatures are far from dumb, is the fact that he said the next day, about 1 o'clock, he had got through fishing, packed up and went back down to his vehicle, and he said that, he told me, he said, and this is God's honest truth, he said, every tennis ball that I had thrown the night before up through the woods was lined up right at the windshield area of my car across my vehicle, and every vehicle was still in that parking area.
Yeah. That does not surprise me at all. And that's exactly the kind of intelligence level that we've been telling people we've experienced 25 years in the field, with JC Johnson, Crypto Four Corners. We've been out some of the darkest, deepest areas that you can get into in some of these forested areas. And these things, they are not what people think they are. And the truth is they are a very, very long way from any sort of dumb ape or great ape or some just undiscovered American primate that's a little shy. These things exhibit human-like behavior, just like you're describing, and it's really spooky when they start doing things that seem to be on par with the logic of a human. But yeah, anytime you see something like that, it's crazy. I just had an eyewitness get a hold of me, and he is out in the Pennsylvania area having an amazing amount of activity. And this guy was lucky enough to get a snapshot of this thing peering around a tree trunk at him. And I'm cleaning up the photos and running through filters and sharpening them up, and I'm not sure this thing's a Sasquatch at all. It looks so freaking weird and so bizarre. But God, just their human-like behavior is spooky. It really is.
Well, Jack, as I've told all the viewers on my show, back in 1981, and I can actually tell you the date, July the 5th, 1981, I had a face-to-face encounter with one of these creatures. Uh, at about 40 yards, we were float fishing. Me and a good friend of mine were float fishing a creek about 10 miles actually from where I live here, Talking Rock Creek.
Mm-hmm.
We had come across our raft that we were in, had went across about a 5-6 foot waterfall, went down about maybe, I don't know, 60 yards or so, creek turned to the right, little Skearcorn Creek feeds in to Talking Rock right there in the bend of the creek, and it fed in on the left. There's a big sandbar that comes out, and this thing was knelt down at the end of the sandbar just like a man would crouch down, right at the edge of the water. Its hands was down in the water. When I first glanced at it, I thought it was a bear, and I did. I thought it was a bear. But this thing raised up and threw its head back like it was winding us. And what really struck me the most about it was when I was expecting two bear paws to come up out of the water, but it was two human-like hands, all except they looked like the fingers were about twice as long as mine, and the backs of them were covered in hair down to about the knuckle.
Right.
And when this thing when it come up and when it stood erect, it was probably about 6.5 foot tall. we were traveling at a good rate of speed, and I really didn't get a lot of facial recognition to it, other than I could actually tell that it did have a wide brow ridge. But
Mm-hmm.
it turned, and the wood line was about 40 yards behind it, and this thing cleared that 40 yards in about two large strides, and it
Wow.
into the woods and gone.
Wow.
Uh, we got the raft. We were probably, I don't know, a couple hundred yards down the creek or farther before we get the raft over to the side, and we paddled back up. They up the side of the creek there to where the sandbar was at, and I got out of the raft and got up on the sandbar, and there was a set of, I don't know if you know, or a pile of what we call freshwater mussel out in this area. Well, this
Mm-hmm.
thing had been getting these things out of the water and eating them, and the shells was piled up about that high. All
Right.
those shells, and maybe about that wide. And as far as a footprint, we found one good distinguishable print. And back at that time, I didn't know what I was looking at. I was just a poor guy, a poor boy from North Georgia that I of course had saw the Patterson Gimlin film back in
Sure.
'67, and
Sure.
uh, but other than that, I really didn't know what I had encountered. Uh, but then I got to researching it, and I've been hooked on this ever since.
Yeah, and God, it's the world's most enduring mystery. And, from a lot of our perspectives, we're somewhat satisfied with a lot of the questions we've been asking. Are they there? Yes. Do they have a type of tribal construction to their society? Yes. It may be in little family pods, but the fact that they have this samurai chatter language means that they have, uh, you know, an archaic culture of some kind. And so all of those things are established. Our problem, and this is the problem I've run into now on four separate occasions, so I know that it's impossible to get by, is the fact that on four separate occasions, viable, very real Sasquatch DNA was obtained. It was obtained in areas where there were eyewitnesses, credible eyewitnesses, who saw the animals leave the DNA at the scene. So that's collected. And to make a long story, painful years, I'm sure a lot of them out there, people that are watching know that's a long, painful battle. But many years of going through this, the same thing keeps appearing over and again when people bring in more Sasquatch DNA. Number one, the mitochondrial, it comes back Homo sapien. That's happened every single time somebody has sent a Sasquatch sample off. The explanation by people like Dr. Todd Disotell and Dr. Brian Sykes is that they have to be contaminated. Well, we know for a fact at C4C, when we collected one of these pristine samples, we took the executive director of the University of New Mexico with us, a Dr. Christopher Dyer, to oversee the collection of the DNA to ensure that it wasn't contaminated, because we knew that that's what they were going to say. And we sent it in, and sure enough, that's what they say. And it's because they cannot accept the idea that this creature is part modern human. Now, the Y, the paternal DNA, comes back from the World Gen Bank, which is a genetic bank where every known species is cataloged. It comes back as unknown. And the reason why is because this species has never been cataloged and then a sample sent to the World Genetic Bank where they had a body saying, yep, here's a little sample off the body. We know it came right off this body. Therefore, it really is DNA. Now it goes to the World Gen Bank. And any other Sasquatch sample you find will match that one in the World Gen Bank, and we'll know what the species is. Right now, all they get is unknown, but closely resembling primate on one half. And on the other half, they get Homo sapien sapien female. And beyond that level, these are the top of the top geneticists whose hurdles you have to get over for scientific acceptance won't look any deeper than that.
Jack, another thing I'd like to ask you, I know that I've encountered this myself many times, and I'm sure you have. Uh, people people are all the time harping that there's a government cover up for these species, that the government does not want to come out and say publicly that these creatures do exist. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I cover that too in my new book because I think it's something that people don't really address seriously enough. And the truth is, the Bigfoot mystery is a mystery that no one really wants solved. And people look at me like I'm crazy when I say that. But the fact is, when you open up the can of worms that solving the Bigfoot mystery does, there are all kinds of repercussions that suddenly cascade about. For example, virtually overnight, when the spotted owl was discovered to be almost extinct in Washington state, it almost bankrupted the entire lumber industry, $2 billion industry at the time, overnight. Now, you have a group of what appear to be half human, half other creature hybrids running around in all of the wilderness areas of North America, including our national parks. This is now public knowledge, right? And you're going to have every constituent for every congressman calling them nonstop. Those lines will just be jammed. And they're going to ask every one of them, what are you going to do about an 8-9 foot, 1,000 pound bipedal apex predator running around in the wilderness areas where I plan to take my children camping this summer? What are you going to do about it? And the congressman's going to say, I don't know, because there is nothing you can do about it. Now, every scientist that's out there that have based their entire careers, including $200,000 in student loan debt to buy the doctorate that they're sitting on to make fun of the rest of us, all of their science, all of their efforts, all comes crashing down that day like a house of cards. And the next day, those dudes are out on the street because they're supposed to be the world's experts, and the biggest find in anthropological history went right under their noses with nonstop ridicule by them, and then not listening to any of us so-called amateurs who have been out in the field and have seen them for ourselves. Another huge problem. So, you can go to the clergy. It'll create problems even in certain religious teachings. And so solving the Bigfoot mystery has this like cascading effect, like a domino falling or ripples going across a pond that people don't think about on the deeper levels of what's really going to happen. So it's going to be interesting. That's all I can say.
Well, do you feel that one of these creatures will ever be brought in?
I'm sorry, what's that?
I said, do you feel that in the near future that one of these creatures will actually be captured or killed or brought in?
You know, captured, absolutely not. Impossibility. Killed is a possibility. However, that's already happened on a number of occasions, which I'm personally aware of. And these creatures travel in groups, and every time an animal is downed, the others grab it and run off with it. So you're not going to get that either. Now, I talk about how, again, in Bigfoot Unleashed, how if you take all of the known Bigfoot sightings, which are right around 30,000 or so, really good, credible ones in North America that are plotted on a map, and you lay those right on top of a map of all of the known cave systems in North America, and they are a spot on match. And I've had three separate Native American elders tell me from three separate tribes that these creatures live underground. And so I think that makes a lot of scientific sense that that's where they duck in when, it's minus 70 below, etc. And it would make sense that they would seek shelter in those kind of areas.
Come on. You were talking about the cave systems. We actually live about 30 miles from Lafayette, Georgia, and there's one of the largest cave systems located in Lafayette, there at Pigeon Mountain. That's probably one of the largest cave systems, I guess, east of the Mississippi. Petty John Cave system over there, and that area, I've actually done investigations over there. We were over there 2 years ago, along in December, and on my Facebook page we have pictures posted where we got a thermal of a large, what I would say was a male, a female, and a younger one, and we captured all three of these on thermal about 50 yards from our camp.
Wow.
So, um, that would make perfect sense to me that these creatures do use cave systems.
Sure. And, and it's things like that, things that should have seemed obvious, I think, going through the decades of people just trying to put the mystery together. Now we're beginning, I think, to see a wider picture. These things being more than just a primate. We know that they're habitating in cave systems, abandoned mines. I know for a fact, because I worked with Robert Kreider before, that he has extremely sensitive parabolic microphones that were able to basically track the speed of one of these things at jogging speed. It moved at an average of about 23 miles an hour. Now that's the speed of Usain Bolt, the fastest sprinter on earth. And this was its easy speed. Its little cruising speed was right about 20 miles an hour. So you can imagine how fast these things go when they really pick up steam. Like you said, crossing a 40-yard dash in 2 steps, that is lightning speed. And more than anything, me included, when I got to witness one taking off, and other people who have seen it, it's not the size that really puts you off so much, it's the speed.
Oh, most definitely, it's the speed of them.
Yeah, the speed, you just freeze. You just can't believe anything could move that fast. And And I think that leaves a lot of people in shock, for sure.
Right. A lot of my viewers, um, they uh, uh, they tend to ask me questions about, well, what type of food source do these creatures uh, eat? How does a 1,000 pound creature sustain its body weight, sustain its
Hmm.
mass?
Hmm.
Uh, do you care to elaborate on that?
Oh yeah, it's actually one of the easier things to explain. Like even when you look at a lot of the work done by Dr. Jeff Meldrum at Idaho State University and Dr. John Bendernagel, where they actually did biological studies of areas where these creatures were reported in order to determine scientifically if there was an abundant enough food source. And they determined that between the fresh fish they could catch in the streams, the nonstop blooming of different berry patches in the various areas, the tons of lichen all over the trees, and the fact that they have what appears to be almost like cheetah like speed, 65, 70 miles an hour over uneven terrain. They can readily catch deer, elk, and it appears they use pack hunting behavior. For example, you'll have a couple of them spook deer out of an area into an area where there's three or four already waiting, and they'll just take them right down. Now, there's been some scientists, some interesting uh, guys that weren't interested in Bigfoot at all. Did they were statisticians and they did probabilities and things like that. But what they did was they plotted on maps all of the Bigfoot sightings just in Colorado. So this is just applying to Colorado. And they did so according to date and month and therefore season. And when they overlaid that onto a migrational map of deer and elk,
Go ahead.
uh, when they laid that basically
Yellow.
on the top
Yeah.
of the migrational patterns, what
Yeah.
they discovered was that the sightings perfectly coincided with the migrational patterns. In other
Okay.
words,
Go ahead.
heavy
No.
snowfall was coming down at the top. The herds come lower and lower during the winter to get to the grass. The Bigfoot sightings would also follow suit, and vice versa. As it was melting, the herds tend to, obviously go back up to the highlands, and more of the sightings occur then at that space. And that convinced these scientists who were, they're all just mathematicians, that in fact only a real animal uh, could show that kind of, simulation.
All right, Jack. Another thing I wanted to ask you, buddy, was these stick structures that we find, uh, and I found plenty of them here in Georgia. I found structures that look like teepee huts. I found structures that look like corrals. Uh, could these structures be utilized by the Sasquatch to help them catch the wild game?
Well, what we've determined, or what we've, there are no experts, obviously, when it comes to trying to decipher these stick structures, but in the field in Colorado, we came to understand that when we came across one of these rudimentary teepees, if we kept going in the same direction, we would run into another one. And if you kept going, you would eventually run into another one. And eventually, it leads always, it seems, into these canyon like areas where there might be places for them to have some sort of refuge. The X's, which we found some gigantic X's. I mean, you're 2 trees that are like 100 feet long with the roots ripped up out of the ground, carried who knows how far, and then placed as an X in the woods. That's a major warning of aggression, that you're entering into an animal that's strong enough to pull something off like that. And a lot of harrowing experiences are had by people who choose to camp at or just past those areas. I mean, it can get pretty scary.
Jack Blake has just joined us. I'm going to bring him on. Hey, buddy.
How's it going, guys? Sorry, I'm running. Sorry, I'm running late. We just now got back home and my phone was dead, and I wasn't paying $20 for a charger.
I don't blame you there. It happens. What are you gonna do?
Blake, Jack, Cary.
Nice to meet you, Jack. I'm Blake.
Jack,
Nice to meet you, Blake. Like, what did you say, Rick?
We were talking about the stick structures.
Right.
Blake and I found a unique item of what was that, a couple of years ago, Blake, where a tree had actually been ripped up by the roots, turned upside down, and shoved down into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have you ever come across anything like that?
I have not personally. However, I know of multiple examples of that happening. You can even Google like Prince Edward Island. There are some trees so big that they did that too. There was no way they got any kind of equipment in there to be able to do it. And they're jammed down, 6-8 feet, these huge trees. And the only other place I've seen photographic evidence of that happening is in northern Colorado, strangely enough. Up near Steamboat.
Yeah, I mean that one time was the only time we've ever found, that. I mean, we've come across many other structures, but as far as like a derooted tree flipped upside down, and I mean, we're not talking, a 5-inch diameter tree. We're talking, something that would have took some type of equipment
Exactly.
to accomplish.
Right, and there's no tracks or anything
No,
around.
no,
right.
There's no way to even get to it without cutting down a bunch of trees to get there. I mean,
yeah, and so it's totally inexplicable. It has to be them. And I always ask myself when I see pictures of it, I'm like, what kind of strength would it take to just drive something like that?
People don't realize to get it derooted.
Yeah,
I mean, to actually pull it out and break all those root systems, I mean, that in itself, is incredible.
It is. It's wow. And it's spooky. Imagine what they could do. They rip your head off, play basketball with it.
Right, and yet you have people out here that think these creatures are just teddy bears running around.
Oh, no. I tell people don't make that mistake. And these weekend researchers get their kids, like these young kids, and they go out and they're going to play Bigfoot Hunter, and they don't realize, I mean, these things are real. I don't even know if they think they're real, if they're pretend, that they're going to run into Harry and the Hendersons. But and some of these creatures are benign. Some of them are completely indifferent. And I mean completely indifferent. You could be laying there with a broken leg, they'll look at you and they won't kill you, but they ain't helping you either. And some of them are just killers.
Well, I look at it in this point. It's just like, say, humans, for example. You're going to have ones that just don't care. They see you walking, whatever. But also, one of my theories is it's just like with every other being or whatever animal. When
Right.
they're young in the area, I think a lot of your aggressive encounters have to do when they have young around.
Yes. Yes, I agree. And young males of breeding age who get driven out of a troop, they are extremely aggressive as well. But it only lasts for, however long their
Well, it's
little.
just like us as teens, that testosterone starts to
Right.
raise, and
Right.
they're going through something that they don't quite understand. They're just angry.
Yep, just angry and yeah, wanting to rip something up. So, but it's been a long, weird year with cryptozoology and the COVID thing. One good side effect seems to be that a lot of wilderness areas that were sort of over hunted as far as looking for evidence were all cut off basically for long periods of time. So
Yeah,
maybe some of the activities come back around.
a lot of our wilderness areas here, our wildlife management areas, were actually shut down for a period of time.
Right,
So,
right. And that helps them, encourages them to come out and give a little more activity, maybe. So that's always a good deal.
All right. Well, now you mentioned activity, Jack. Uh, Blake and I have the area, like I told you, down at Altoona Lake that we frequent, and where we had our first encounter together. Um, but it seemed that in progression of time, uh, over the last 8-10 years, that in 2011, 2012, this area was a hotbed. It was very, very active.
yeah,
But
there are very few nights you would go down there and not get a howl or some type of evidence.
Right,
but
right.
but
Last
as time's progressed, uh, the area seems to be less active. Now,
quite a bit less
is
active.
there a reason that these creatures want to still be in the area?
Now, is
Now,
that like a year round kind of noticeable
okay,
absence, or
so
are they just gone in the season when they normally were there as
well,
well?
so like when we first started going down to this area, I mean, like Ricky said, it was just active. Like I mean, they weren't many times you would go down there and something didn't happen.
Uh-huh.
And just like over the years, it's just slowly progressed. It was more of a slow progress at the beginning, but now, especially in the last probably 2 years, 3 years, we've had some evidence still, but nothing like it was back 10 years ago. But then again, they have started cutting down trees, and it's a wildlife management area. But they have
Right.
started cutting down trees, not directly where the activity was at, but surrounding land within about a mile or two of where all this stuff was happening.
And
So I think a lot of human activity in the area may have kind of pushed them out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They may have not went far, but they're not in the general area where they were.
Yeah, perhaps just kind of pushed them out a little bit further. I do know from not only from our work, but from the work that was done by the Wood Ape Conservatory Group, who hold a different theory than I do about what they are. However, they were successful in planting a tag on one of these creatures using a hair trap. And they were able to actually track this thing long enough that they were able to determine that it was like other primates. So a primate has what's called a day range, and that's a migratory range. And during the course of a day, it will go through this entire migratory range, which is pretty wide. It's a pretty big area just for a regular primate like in Africa. And this thing apparently was doing roughly the same thing, and it seemed to know with perfect timing whenever something was going to be in bloom all the way around. But it stayed within a very specific geographic area but it still roamed in that area widely, and I just
But
thought,
it stayed in that particular area.
right.
Because I mean, like back when when it was super hot down there, 2011, 2010, it seemed like certain times of the year were more active than others. So,
Sure.
I don't know if they were a mild migration there where maybe they kind of backed down this specific area, didn't go super far, but weren't in the area. But you could always count on them about all year round being in that general area within a certain reasonable distance.
Sure.
But now, like, it's almost like I just feel like they've just completely abandoned the area.
Yeah, that's strange. Yeah, it really is. And I've heard other people mention the same thing, and there's really no explanation as far as I could tell, unless the main food source somehow migrated elsewhere
Yeah.
with them,
I'm
But
saying in this area down there, Jack, it's abundant with deer.
is it?
Yeah,
Wow.
with deer, main
I
body
mean,
lake.
big body of water, big lake. I mean,
Yeah, big lake.
they're.
Sounds like a
All
perfect habitat.
Oh yeah, it's a perfect habitat. I mean, they're creeks. I mean, anything you could ask for as far as food source, it's there. And it's a wildlife management area. So far as hunting stuff like that, it's limited. It's so
Right.
just like a lot of places, your wildlife management areas are hot spots a lot of times.
Sure. It sounds like a little paradise, which is interesting. I can't imagine why the activity would have gone down.
Well, here's and something else I have, like, it's just a theory, but see, okay, so back in 2011 or 12, I actually spoke with the BFRO and they took my report and everything. And I did not want the location. I gave them a general location, but I did not tell them the exact location.
Sure.
And they did not put anything in my report about the location other than a rural cemetery on Alatoona Lake, which kind of dumb on my part because I wasn't thinking. There are not many rural cemeteries on the lake. But
Yeah. People are, yeah, I gotcha.
yep, exactly. I went back on about 2 years ago. I just, I browse every once in a while and I'll just click on it and, I'll go through and read my own report just for a little reminiscing. And last time I was on there is a GPS location and map of where this place is. So they released the location. So I don't know if that may have something to do with it, that they may have been some people going down there because of that. I mean, because it is a pretty famous report in the area. So
yeah. And if you get a lot of those people showing up doing the wrong thing, it'll drive them out for a while. So it's a damn shame when that happens, and it happens a lot. There's a lot of people out there that are just jumping at the bit to find, an active.
And I'm not saying that's what it was, because I mean I've never ran into anybody else. Well,
Sure.
I ran into one person down there kind of doing the same thing, but I've never ran into anybody else. So they're either going down there when we're not down there, or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Something's got to be at the root cause. So.
Well, I think it's a combination. I think with that, maybe some presence of other people down there bothering them, and then the cutting down the trees and stuff in the general area, and they may have just they could be a couple miles away for all I know, but they're not where they were.
Yeah, that's what I would do just out of curiosity and interest. I've had a lot of luck with this, by the way. So go back to where you had some common activity going on there, and just leave a little hand mirror. Just a little hand mirror on top of a stump. Nothing else. And then go back and check it in a couple of weeks. There's only one animal in the forest that will take a hand mirror.
Pick it up. Yep.
It is the most valuable thing that they can possess because they can see their reflection.
And that to them is just amazing.
Oh yeah, so it's like magic to them. But mirrors always get huge. And if it's food, another animal may have taken it. If it's a mirror, it's got an opposable thumb to pick it up off of, a tree trunk or whatnot.
And then carry it.
Yes, yeah, and then carry it away. So,
Never thought about the hair mirror thing. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it took me a few years, and then one day it just occurred to me. I was like, I wonder what they. Yeah, I was thinking about them looking into a stream, that was clear when they're drinking, and what they must think about what they look like if they have a human-like intelligence. And I'm like, I'm gonna start taking some mirrors, and it seemed to really work. So
Yeah, because I mean, and one, it's as curious as they are, that is a object that is going to pique their interest,
yeah,
tremendously.
right. And an apple, a bear can take an apple, or
Yeah, any type of food, any type of food. I mean, it can be now the whole thing with peanut butter jars being open and the lid placed back on, and stuff like that. That's compelling. But I mean, just
yeah,
leaving a random object far as a food object. I mean,
right. So kind of hard to tell, but yeah, going into the hard season now, when it's getting cold, and start making plans again for this next spring. Going to be hitting Oklahoma hard. How about you?
see, a lot of our encounters down at where we were just talking about wintertime. That's always been the most active for us in that area down there.
Yeah, that's really good. What state are you guys in?
Georgia.
Georgia. Okay.
Yeah. Northwest Georgia. We do a lot of stuff in Northwest Georgia. Then over towards the Blue Ridge Mountain area.
Yeah. See, this time of year, doing field research, I would normally be down in the Ouachita Mountains in Oklahoma, kind of foothills of the Ozarks, right there, where so many of those early historical sightings are. And it's nice because there's not snow I have to tranche through.
That's the thing about our climate. We don't have very snowy winters. I mean, we don't have super cold winters most of the time. I mean, every once in a while we get cold winters, but we're not talking anything below, I think the coldest I've ever seen here where we live in the wintertime at night, I've seen it right around 0. I mean, you might have a wind chill below that, but that's the coldest in 31 years of my life I've ever seen. I mean,
wow.
See, most of the time it's above freezing during the day. You're talking 45, 50 degrees or higher during the day, and
that's what I'm loving from where I grew up. Now, I grew up down in that area where you're talking about, where you get these pretty nice winters. I married a Norwegian girl from South Dakota, which is where I'm at right now. And this last winter, we had something like 20 days where the wind chill was -70.
Yeah, see, yeah, never. I mean, that's a bad winter event here. I mean,
yeah, unbelievable. I was like, man, I don't know how long I could take it.
The worst winter we had in this area was 1993.
That was the worst snow. I don't want to say it was probably temperature-wise the coldest, but
yeah, it probably was. I'm a lot older than you, Blake. It probably was about the coldest.
It was 70. It was 70 degrees the day before we got the blizzard.
Oh my God! You gotta love that.
Next 2 weeks, it was like a damn ice ball. we had, and I know this probably sounds mundane to what you're used to out there, but we're used to 2-3 inches of snow being a big snow.
Big snow. Area. Yeah, you get 8 or 9 inches. You got a snow. Like there ain't nobody going nowhere. There ain't nothing open. You at home.
Backyard in the and this was March when we got this thing.
Wow.
And I went out in the backyard and measured it. We had 38 inches of snow on the ground in my backyard.
Wow, that's impressive. The best I ever did was I was living in Evergreen, Colorado. It was at 9,200 feet altitude in this little chalet shack of a cabin. I was doing a lot of Bigfoot work, and stuff. And here comes this monster storm, and it stormed 6 feet in 2 days.
Yeah, like if that happened here, like people would die. Like I mean, people would literally die if we got that much snow here.
Yeah, and I had 6 cords of wood, and all I had was this wood burning stove to keep the place hot, and this huge long driveway. It took me a week with a snow shovel just to try to get out to where I get my truck out. Man, it was insane, but
Terrible.
what are you gonna do?
That's like where I live. Its driveway was about 400 foot long, and it actually took us 4 days to shovel it out enough to where we could get a 4-wheel drive out of the driveway.
God.
So, yeah, it was wild. Jack,
Well,
before we go, and I know Blake's probably been dying to ask you this. Mind speak. How do you feel about that? About these creatures possessing what a lot of people refer to as supernatural abilities?
well, for my theory, it's not that far off, because in Paranormal Planet, I talk about the unified field theory of paranormal activity that I developed, and in that theory, it stipulates that any and all bipedal cryptid animals have to, in fact, be a chimera construction, and they're done on such a sophisticated, advanced level that it could only have been done by an ET intelligence of some kind. So for them to have a DNA to where they could actually communicate in that fashion doesn't surprise me at all. They've never given me any mental speak unless it was boo. And I just took off running, because there's just been a few of those, you know. But
Yeah, I've never personally experienced any type of mind speak or any,
yeah.
anything like that myself.
No, they have
I mean,
intimidated.
I've gotten, of course, it's just intuition and, senses taking over, something feeling like it's telling you to get out of there, just, that type of feeling. But, it's not actually physically something saying, hey, leave. I mean,
Right. Yeah. I've never or had been zapped, like people talk
yeah.
about, where they get all disoriented and stuff like that, which might be infrasound. They might have the ability to use infrasound, but
Well, I mean, all the analyzation that's been done with their vocals and howls and stuff like that. I mean, their frequencies are low enough to, to be able to cause infrasound. So
yeah, absolutely. So almost anything is possible, and all theories are equal till one's proven true. I think technology is going to help us catch up to the point where we're going to begin to get deeper glimpses into the real nature of the mystery. I hope pretty soon. So,
I mean, it could also be something that we're still researching 100 years from now. I mean,
that's true too. You never know. This one is it's quite a mystery. It really is.
Well, Jack, what is your feelings? I know there's a lot of groups out there that all they're out there for is to kill one of these creatures and bring it and let science cut it up. How do you feel about that, buddy?
Yeah, see, I don't think that that's necessary. And the other thing is, these people that are pro kill like that, I don't want to offend anybody.
no, you're good.
Yeah, in my professional opinion, those people don't know what they're talking about. They've not been in the field with multiple creatures. When it's obvious that if you pull the trigger on one of them, that you're not going to survive it. You're not getting out of those woods alive. There's 2, 3, 4 of them. You might see just the one. The others you can't see because they're on both sides of you. And a lot of the times you'll come across one, right? And he'll make just enough noise that you'll go forward, and he'll go another 20, 30 yards. And you'll go and he'll make another 20, 30 yards, and you just get sucked in. The whole time these guys are moving in from the sides. and you shoot one of those things and you're going to get ripped to pieces like a rag doll, in my opinion. But so I highly advise against that. That being said, obviously the caves and around the caves, the entrances to the caves are going to be our best bet to retrieving these animals in a natural way without putting them or us in danger.
I agree 100%, especially with the cave theory. I mean, that's one of my. Everybody's like, well, how do they hide? Where do they go?
Yeah. It's
Caves.
the caves. Yeah.
I mean, caves are they're highways. They're easy cover. It's the same temperature all year round.
Yeah.
It is the perfect habitat.
It is. And we even have come across them digging out pit caves. So way out in the woods where you don't come across like a rock face. You might just have one big boulder, but they'll go right up to the boulder and they'll just start digging right at the base of it. And they'll dig out this just gigantic, cavern of a room. And then they'll just pile a bunch of crap up over the entrance to it. And we call them pit caves because we don't know what else to call them, But man, they're it's quite a species. So
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, it's probably one of the most intelligent species, other than man, that has ever inhabited the earth.
I almost feel like they're smarter than us sometimes.
yeah. In many ways, I think they are. Yeah.
You take them
they're more in tune with nature and themselves, and just the earth. They're more in tune with earth.
Yeah, they're so intelligent that everything that they need is literally right in their environment, and there's no need for them to produce any kind of technology or whatever because they can utilize everything so effectively. Is how I kind of.
Well, they live like man did, 1,000 years ago.
Right.
They just never evolved into a technological advanced species.
Yeah. True masters of the forest. So, but it's been great being on here, guys. How often do you do your shows?
Every Wednesday, for sure. But like sometimes, like this week and stuff, we have somebody that canceled the week before or something. We try to fit them in on a different day.
Cool. Well, have me on again sometime. I've got to run because my wife is hollering at me. But
most definitely, man, you've got a standing ovation or a standing invitation anytime you want to come back.
Yeah, love to talk to you guys. You got a lot of information that I'd like to talk to you about.
Yeah, and I won't be late the next time, I promise.
Oh, that ain't no worries. We're informal around here.
That's true. I really love having you on tonight, buddy.
Hey, thank you very much.
Go ahead and tell the folks before you go the name of your book that you have out.
Okay, yeah, my newest book is Bigfoot Unleashed. And in Bigfoot Unleashed, I present a lot of evidence most researchers have never heard of before. And I present what I believe to me might be the most logical explanation for all of the missing 411 cases. So check it out.
All right. Hey,
I'm big into the 411 cases, so that would be something I would definitely be interested in.
Oh, good. Yeah, check out the case I lay out for that.
All right, if our viewers want to pick up a copy, where can they get a copy of your book?
Oh, if you just Google my name, Jack Cary, and Bigfoot Unleashed, it'll all pop up. Or if you just Google my name, Jack Cary, all of my work will just pop up right there.
Now, do you have any can you get like electronical, like Amazon? Is it on Amazon for as like a?
It is. Bigfoot Unleashed is an ebook on Kindle, and Kindle's a free app for every single thing out there, and it's only $10, which I love because with the ebooks you can present color photographs, and the color photographs tell so much more detail to the reader. And the printed copies are like black and white photographs. And last time I did that, really wasn't happy with it. So I'm just going to go with the ebooks and the color because I think the color.
Well, it just makes it so much more convenient for people.
Right. So.
Well, Jack, again, thank you, buddy, for being on the show. You have a standing invitation. You can come back and chat with us. Just let me know. Just hit me up, and we'll put you down on the list.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much, Rick. Blake, it was a pleasure meeting both of you.
It was good meeting you,
Okay,
Jack.
man.
All right. I'll talk to you next time.
You have a great night,
Thank you
buddy.
very much.
All right.
Wow. You missed the first part of the show, didn't you?
I apologize, Ricky.
Hey, no problem. Go back and watch it, man. He really came across with some very interesting evidence. I mean, the man really knows what he's talking about.
We didn't leave Cartersville till 10 o'clock, and it was either I was either going to stop and get a charger, and I walk into the store, and it's $13 for the cord and $9 for the charging for the car, and I'm just like, I'll just wait till I get home.
I don't blame you. I would have had to. I would have had to. Oh. Well, buddy, it's been a long day. I have been up since 5 o'clock this morning, or yesterday morning now. I've got to get back up about 7 in the morning, so I'm going to hop off here and get my butt in the bed.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. And if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, bell notification, like, and a comment. And I hope everyone has a great night, and we'll let Ricky go get some rest.
Thanks, everybody. God bless. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you in the next Wednesday. Oh, by the way, we're having Trina from Middle Tennessee is going to be back on, sharing some new evidence that she's obtained around her home there in Middle Tennessee. So join us for that one. Be Wednesday night at 10 o'clock. Blake, be here.
I will.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. As Blake says, hit that subscribe button, that bell notification, and leave a comment. Hit that like button. Show YouTube you like our content. Everybody, we love you all. Good night.
Good night, guys.